We got way too early rankings today. We're going to start with the quarterbacks. Look at that. Matthews way too early 2026 rankings. It's the most words we've ever had on that animation.
It's a lot.
Here they are from 1 through 20. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson at the top. How about Drake May at 3?
Yeah.
There, Matthew.
MVP runner-up.
That's right.
Yeah. Should have been the MVP.
I think what's
post-playoffs, maybe.
Oh, man. This combo could really derail the show.
Yeah.
So, big picture, though, Matthew, as we look at this list. You've said this before, too, over the last recent, month or two. Feels like this is a deeper quarterback
Crazy
year,
deep.
right? Where you can afford to wait more than other years.
Bo Nix is outside the top 12. So is Jackson Dart. We'll talk about that. Matthew Stafford, who was so monstrous last year, he's not a top 15 play for me. Again, it's just incredibly deep. And then as you get down there, Daniel Jones, assuming he's healthy, Daniel Jones was a top 10 fantasy quarterback before he got injured, right? We've seen Baker Mayfield. We've seen Baker Mayfield at 17. We've seen Baker Mayfield be top 10. Malik Willis has that kind of skill set. Jared Goff, another year in the could Jared Goff get back in there with a touchdown equity like Stafford season? So it's just the depth at the quarterback position. We always say it's deep, but this year I feel more than ever, specifically for fantasy football, it's as deep as it's ever been.
Yeah, Malik Willis at 19 is wild.
Yeah.
He's upside to be a top 6-7 fantasy quarterback. That seems very plausible. I know the weapons are.
He's the Will Smith meme. He's just standing in the room I guess A-Chan, but
it's his legs on A-Chan.
He'd had to give you that 40 rushing yards per game to really hit that fantasy ceiling.
But still, again, you look at the list and where are you moving Willis up to? Who are you moving down? That's the
Daniel Jones.
I tell you what, looking at that list, and I believe
how quickly he bails on the shoe.
I saw.
Yeah, wow, that was all-time fast.
Yeah.
I saw Justin Herbert there at 15, and there's if the quarterbacks are drafted in that order or something similar, you're gonna see a lot of fantasy rosters that win their leagues with a guy like Justin Herbert at quarterback, especially if he runs like he did last year. He ran more than he'd ever done in his career. And if you could get that 25, 30 rush yards per game out of a guy who's drafted as the quarterback 14, 15, you're going to be doing some winning.
Yeah, this year, when Lawrence bails on all of his quarterbacks,
zero QB.
It's zero QB.
No, we are privy to Malik Willis, but I'll have Tua.
Yeah.
I'll have Tua in there dumping off.
The only show you'll ever hear those words.
Tua and Bryce Young.
He did really well last year.
Bryce Young didn't even make that list.
Lawrence did well, not Tua.
I'll have him. Fernando Mendoza, I'll have him.
Your quarterbacks in our league, it was Penix and Bryce Young, right?
Yeah.
But you had Jonathan Taylor and James Cook.
Your team was insane.
Yeah.
And you had one other. You had 3 huge running backs. Was it Tyron?
It was Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, and Jahmyr Gibbs.
That's what it was.
I took Jahmyr Gibbs.
Well, that'll do it.
Yeah.
You could have started Brady Cook in your super flex, and you still would have get one.
Yeah.
Maybe I did.
I think 1 week he did. Yeah, exactly.
God.
But anyway, it's just, my point is listen, and this is my initial ranks. As we get closer to August, as we get more news, we'll talk about this. But in the case of Herbert, could Herbert be a top 10 quarterback? Of course he could. The thought process here is that with a healthier offensive line, they're going to be more run heavy. Last year, he ran a lot more and he passed a lot more because they just couldn't run block. They just, he was constantly running for his life, and they had to go in shotgun and just throw a lot because they just weren't able to run the ball. And that's not the offense they truly want to run. And so obviously Slater and Alt being healthy, some of the moves they've made that they expect to be more run heavy and more balanced this year. So that's the thought on Herbert. But just again, it's crazy deep.
Doomy McSledge says, I'll just punt on quarterback and take Jordan Love as my QB1.
Yep.
Right? Didn't make the list.
Graphic.
I think 2 years ago in the preseason, I think C.J. Stroud is being taken as QB6. Now, that was coming off his rookie year. We had a higher opinion of C.J. Stroud. But now QB6 is Joe freaking Burrow. It's right. Pretty...
And by the way, Burrow and Stafford are really the only guys on this entire list that don't get you any... Goff, I guess. That don't get you anything with their legs. Yeah. There's just rushing quarterbacks. There's so many more rushing quarterbacks. Again, Willis, Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield started to run more last year. He'd get you 20 or so yards a game as well. Obviously, Herbert, Nix, Dart, you keep going up Dak doesn't run as much these days, but for the most part, of the 20 quarterbacks I ranked, 16 of them, 17 of them get you at least something with their legs as well.
Yeah. Let's go back to the top of the list. Josh Allen. Well, we know he's the alien of this position year after year. How big is the gap, though, between him and everyone else?
So it's it's big and then it's not big.
Right.
And here's what I mean by that. So it's big in the sense that, like, to me, he's the consensus number one. He's by far the safest. 41 rushing touchdowns over the last 3 years. Derrick Henry, literally the only player in the NFL with more rushing touchdowns over the last 3 years than Josh Allen. Proud Fantasy Life investor, by the way. He's been a top 2 fantasy quarterback. He hasn't finished lower than 2 in 6 straight seasons. So, I mean, there's not just weekly upside, win you the week upside, but there's also a floor there. If he's healthy, he's going to be one of the top 2 quarterbacks in fantasy. And I think everyone else you can sort of poke a hole in and say, like, Lamar with the injuries, Drake May with, 1 year, everything, like Jaden, obviously the injuries, et cetera. Like, you can go down the list and you can sort of start poking holes. And there's no holes to poke when it comes to Josh Allen, who's been doing it without a lot of, now he's got DJ Moore, who's, the best receiver he's had since Stephon Diggs, right? So I think the gap is significant in that sense. But the reason I say it's not significant is because, again, it's so deep. I don't think Josh Allen is probably going to go in the 3rd round in most drafts. And given how deep the position is, I don't think he's worth a 3rd round pick. He's my number one quarterback, and I think he is clearly, like, he's number one in a tier by himself. But then I also think the position is so deep, he's not going to be worth a 3rd round pick, which is where he's going to go.
You talk about the consistency there. That's the thing with Josh Allen. We're going to see new guys every year in that 3, 4, 5, 6 range. But like you said, Josh Allen always no worse than quarterback 2. When you look at QB2 from last year, that was Matthew Stafford. He was behind him in points per game at 1.9. Could that decide a fantasy week? Yeah, but that's not a lot of points. But thing is, Josh Allen had 11 games over 20 fantasy points. Again, Drake May had 10 of those. Matthew Stafford had 9. Patrick Mahomes had 8. But the thing is the consistency. So if he's going to go in the 3rd round, I would be fine getting a guy I think could be a top 5 quarterback in the 8th or 9th round instead of drafting a Josh Allen in the 3rd. Like, guys like a Lamar has to get to around 6 for me, the way I play, for me to even start thinking about that. No. So for Josh,
he gets around 12 for you, the way you play.
not Lamar.
All right,
not
really?
Lamar.
You might actually draft Lamar, break your 0 QB.
There was a time last year I got Josh Allen in the 6th round. Somebody let him go to the 6th round. I'm like, I'll take that. Right. But the 2nd, 3rd round stuff, I'm willing to let go past because, to your point, in a way it's close, but then in a way it's not.
Well, that's why I think Lamar's the hardest guy on this list to price, because Josh Allen at number 1, that's consensus. There's not going to be a lot of argument against it, Jay. But Lamar Jackson is the one guy on this list when he's healthy and he's at the height of his powers. Like Josh Allen, he could just single-handedly win you weeks. But what price are you willing to pay when we saw him look human last year, finally?
Yeah, so it's been a strange stretch for Lamar. Obviously, the year before he goes 41 touchdowns through the air, 4 interceptions, has, effectively ties for MVP. With Josh Allen then last year, the thing that gives me confidence with Lamar is that he was amazing at the start, and I thought he was amazing right at the end. The Steelers game that they lost, he did everything humanly possible to win that game. And more to the point, he looked like Lamar Jackson. He was dealing with the hamstring, and he came back off of that, and he didn't get a rhythm off of that injury. I think as well, before he actually started missing time, he didn't look the same to me. Like, the Lions sacked him like 9 times. Like, why are the Lions sacking Lamar Jackson 9 times? That was ridiculous. And so I think that Lamar, if he is healthy, and that is always the caveat with Lamar, then yeah, he is the clear number 2.
Well, listen, so the first 3 weeks of the season last year, he averaged over 27 fantasy points per game. Then he gets injured, comes back week 9. I don't think he was fully healthy the rest of the way. The other thing, so first off, a little bit of this baking in is just like, hey, I think he gutted it through last year at the end, but I'm thinking about those first 3 weeks. And again, his first 6 seasons prior to last year, he averaged at least 20 fantasy points as a starter. So again, we know the floor is there with Lamar. The other thing is like the reason I have him at 2. And look, you want to take Drake May, like there's arguments for all these guys, right? My pro Lamar argument is something that has nothing to do with stats. Connor, I'll talk to you about this. They have a new head coach in Jesse Minter. And from what I've heard, and you tell me if you've heard the same thing, from what I've heard is that John Harbaugh and Monken, obviously under Harbaugh, that Lamar basically had free reign. I mean, he's a superstar, and he held out and everything like that, and that there was especially that Harbaugh, very much a veteran coach and sort of letting players do what they say, and that what I've heard is that Jesse Minter is much more of a in-your-face guy.
Yeah, like, we're gonna do this.
We're going to do this, and that Jesse will, that Coach Minter will challenge Lamar in a way that he hasn't been challenged in recent years. That, will really get in his face. I have no idea if that's true. Those are just rumors that I've heard. That was like that. I didn't put that in the combine rumor, but that was one of the rumors that I sort of heard late night. I have no idea if that's true. I've never been at a Ravens practice, so I'm just saying, but that's the thought process there, is that I've heard, is that, the kind of coach Jesse Minter is that he holds players really accountable, and that he will be talking with Deb McCourty, with our colleague Deb McCourty about Belichick. He said the genius of Belichick is that the guy he ripped the hardest was Tom Brady. That when he would yell at players, Brady got the brunt of it. And he's just because then once you totally, dress down your superstar quarterback, then no one can complain. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so
holds everyone to the same standard.
Right, hold everyone to the same standard, and especially okay, star quarterback, you're no different than, whatever, the punter or the special
Brady,
teams. Huh?
Brady wasn't no superstar when Belichick got him.
Fair.
So Brady always had that
chip.
This dude gave me a shot type deal.
Right.
So that would be the small difference, but
listen, look, again, I've never met Jesse Minter, I don't know, but you're replacing John Harbaugh. You're replacing a team that has made the playoffs or been in contention for playoffs for whatever, 18 seasons, or as long as Harbaugh's been. You understand that your job here is you've been an MVP and you've never made it to the championship round. My job is to get you over that hump. And so I think, again, from what I understand about his coaching style and what's sort of gone, he obviously has to be an agent of change. Clearly, the ownership in Baltimore was not happy with what had gone on. And I can't imagine Lamar is happy with, how they've finished the seasons a number of years.
If you missed it, we have a poll in the chat on who your fantasy QB2 is after Josh Allen.
Oh, yeah.
I just voted. Lamar Jackson is leading the charge with over 50% of the votes. Drake May is the runner-up here, over 30% of the votes.
Did you vote for
Jaden Jalen.
I did vote for Geno Smith. I did a write-in. Yes.
I was just thinking, because of the injuries and the stats for Lamar that fluctuated, I was wondering, I wonder if there's going to be a small discount on him. Apparently not, according to these votes. So
still Lamar Jackson.
So there
Maybe
goes
by
that.
round, though. He could be the QB2, but instead of Josh Allen in round 3, Lamar at the end of round 3, you might get a little bit of a round discount.
Lamar round 4, to me, that ain't no discount. Not enough.
That's a premium pick.
Yeah, so.
But anyway, that's the thought process on Lamar at 2.
All right, that brings us to, let's talk about Caleb Williams, because this is someone who, if he finishes QB2 next year, Jay, you'd be like, yeah, Caleb Williams was the number 1 pick in the draft. He plays in Ben Johnson's offense. He's insanely talented, and he runs. But if he didn't make that jump, you'd also be like, yeah, there's absolutely some risk with that slot. He's got more variance than the guys around him in this list.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very encouraging that last year Caleb was QB7 in terms of points per game in fantasy, and that was despite being, I know he had all the late heroics, but his game is still fairly raw. His completion percentage wasn't great. There is some low-hanging fruit for him still to clean up. I mean, this is his second year. He's going to get better. And the other thing too, Connor, is that there just wasn't the continuity with Luther Burden, with Rome Odunze. He's very dependent on DJ Moore, who they have since traded to Buffalo. So I think that, a ton of upside for Caleb, obviously very high variance.
Year 2 Colson Loveland.
Well, year 2 Colson Loveland, year 2 Luther Burden, year 2 of Ben Johnson's offense, behind that offensive line. Caleb Williams was a top 10 quarterback last year on a points per game basis, and now, again, gives you points with his rushing. He was one of only 2 quarterbacks to rank top 7 at the position in both passing and rushing. Drake May was the other guy there again. So, again, Jaden Daniels is hurt, and I think he could potentially get there. But, again, you like the weapons around him, you like the offense around him, you like the fact that he gets you points with both his arms and his legs. Yeah, I mean, I am at QB5 I don't have him at QB5. I'm at QB7. I mean, this year, but would not surprise me if he finished as a top 5 fantasy quarterback.
Right behind him, Lawrence Patrick Mahomes at number 8. And it might seem weird to see Patrick Mahomes at 8, but of course the torn ACL and LCL in his left knee, which the surgery was in December. I guess the question is, do we get to see Patrick Mahomes right out of the gate week 1, and what version is
I'm
it?
going to ask you a second question, too. QB8, am I too high or am I too low?
Maybe too low, Matthew. Maybe, but it's because of the injury.
Yeah.
21 fantasy points per game last year. With quarterbacks that played at least 12 games last year, Patrick Mahomes was actually quarterback 3. A big reason why he averaged 30.5 rushing yards per game. That's a career high for him, despite the games he missed down the stretch because of the injury. He also had a career high in total rushing yards, over 400 in that department. Now, coming off a ACL injury, I don't know that you want Patrick Mahomes running as much, but this is something we saw him in the past not do so much until they got to the playoffs. But because of the lack of weapons around the Chiefs' offense, he took it upon himself earlier in the season. So I would say this is where this is the guy you're getting the discount on, because we don't know when he's going to come back. So I would just say this: you could probably get Patrick Mahomes in double-digit rounds, and then you just go ahead and take Justin Fields with the last pick. Because at that point, who else is going to take Justin Fields knowing you're going to probably get 2-3 games out of Justin Fields? So just double up in that fashion and let it be as it may. And they still could trade for Tyreek Hill.
My ranking is with, we'll obviously update it as we get closer to August, but I am ranking him assuming he's playing week 1. Yep. So, if we find out that there's a setback, that he's not going to be back till week 4 or whatever, obviously the ranking will change. But again, I think he's a superstar quarterback. I think they're adding talent. I think they'll continue to add talent this year. And I think Eric Bieniemy coming back actually will help. He's another.
I agree.
He's another fiery guy that will get results.
What do you think the Chiefs do with their first pick?
I think they're going to go defense. Okay. I think they're kind of hoping. That's why they went out and signed Kenneth Walker. Like, Jeremiah Love won't make it there. Look at Reuben Bain, Caleb Downs. I feel pretty good about them. And there's also a question, like, will Carnell Tate even be there if they wanted him? He could go from the Giants to the Browns to the Saints.
Yep.
They're going to get
Tate
to
as your number one wide receiver in terms of drafting. You have Tyson.
Jordan Tyson.
You have Tyson.
Tate's 2.
Okay.
But he'd be a great fit for the Chiefs. They don't have a lot of big receivers.
That's right.
And the one they have, Rashee Rice, is never available. So how about Ved Regular saying Mahomes or Burrow this season?
Well, I have Burrow higher. Proud Fantasy Life investor Joe Burrow. I have Burrow higher. But again, sort of similar questions. I mean, Burrow continuously gets hurt. Now, he's currently healthy and Mahomes isn't, but you have to factor that in. I mean, and if I drafted Burrow, you never like to draft 2 quarterbacks, but depending on the depth of the league, Joe Flacco is, he's in Cincinnati, and we've seen Flacco.
In 2 minutes, we've talked about 2 quarterback handcuffs.
I know, which is
in one quarterback leagues.
Jets legends, Joe Flacco and Justin Fields.
I know we're up against the break, so I'll just very quickly. I know when I released these rankings, some of the questions that came at me on Twitter, on Threads, on X, sorry, whatever. Threads, I'm on Threads, yeah, baby.
I don't even have my login.
Yeah, exactly. I know, because I tag you on Threads, and it's just like
I appreciate you doing that, but
but anyway, when I posted my rankings, among the questions that came back, it's like, why is Jackson Dart not a top 12 guy? I think that two reasons why, and again, this may adjust as we get closer to August. I think Dayball and Kafka going down to Nagy, I think that's a downgrade in terms of offensive system. I'm not the biggest Matt Nagy fan.
Yeah, you're not alone on that mountain.
And again, we need to see the health of Malik Neighbors, see what else they do with that, do with the offense. Isaiah Lakely, okay, great, but it's going to be a new system, and also he rushes so much, there's some injury risk there. We love it in fantasy when he's out there, but again, so currently have him. I have Dart at 13, so I don't have him I have him borderline QB1, but I'm at 13. And then Stafford, who last year was a top 3 fantasy quarterback, I'm in the teens. Well, the problem is I just don't expect that kind of massive touchdown equity that he had last year. The previous 2 seasons, Matthew Stafford was QB 23 on a points per game basis because he doesn't run. You know what I mean? And they tend to run when they get in close with Kyron or Blake Corum. We'll talk about that coming up. But anyway, that's the reason on Stafford is I think last year was an outlier year.
Yeah.
It's great to see it.
There were 6 extra goal line touchdown fades because he wanted to win MVP. I think.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So smart strategy.
He's still a 38-year-old quarterback with a bad back, right? That doesn't run.
Yep.
So
had a lot of career highs last year.
Yep.
Hell of a year.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.